Welcome to Just Around the Corner. This is a podcast that explores the lives of interesting people, examining the moments in their lives that encouraged and challenged them. And as a result, may their stories challenge and encourage your life for what's just around the corner for you. My guest today is Mr. Cody Rome, an officer in the US Navy Reserve, a US Naval Academy graduate, and a businessman. I'm Dennis Mansfield.
Thank you for joining Just Around the Corner with Dennis Mansfield. As John Hay, one of the most famous men of the 19th century, once said, all the great prizes in life are just around the corner. Let's go there together.
Well, welcome back to Just Around the Corner. It's an honor to come to you on a regular basis with this podcast, talking about the things that seem deeply important to many people at different times on many different levels. Any podcast out there can touch on a broad scheme of things. What I try to do is to ask the very central theme about a person's life. In other words, what happens in one person's life and how it can impact the lives of others who listen or watch a podcast. So I'm honored today to introduce a friend of mine, Cody Rome. Cody, good to have you with us.
Thank you, Dennis. It's good to be here.
And I appreciate you being able to share your story so that you might be able to encourage others. Yours is a tale that moves through a lot of different things. Now, I'd like you, if you wouldn't mind, to give a brief introduction of your background. How'd you get here?
Yeah, absolutely, Dennis. So just a little bit about me. As you know, we're here in Boise, Idaho right now, and as it turns out, I was actually born and raised here, all throughout my younger years, all the way up through high school. And after high school, had a great opportunity to get my undergrad degree from the United States Naval Academy, one of the handful of service academies. And as a result of that program, received a commission in the United States Navy with a specialty in submarines. So since after that point, served for about 7.5 years as a submarine warfare officer. And towards the end of that time, looking for a career move, stumbled upon a great opportunity to move back home to Boise, Idaho, to pursue some other important areas of my life, and also start a career in business of helping our hardworking families with financial planning and building financial security, still working with our nation's military members. And in conjunction with that, part-time, I'm in the United States Navy Reserves doing submarine support and project management.
Do you mind us doing a deeper dive?
I see what you did there. Yes, absolutely.
I'd like to ask you, what equipped you in those years to be where you are today, and what damaged you at the same time that you brought that baggage with you into having to deal with difficult times?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'd say probably the biggest things that equipped me in a positive sense in my life, first and foremost, just being raised by wonderful parents, Tony and Tony, as you know.
Wait, stop for a second. Now, I know your parents, and you grew up answering the phone when people would say, "Could I talk to Tony, please?" How, as a kid with a mom named Tony with an I and a dad named Tony with a Y, were you successful in navigating those waters?
Maybe 50-50. It's long ago. I can't quite remember. But great, honorable, faithful parents, and really instilled just the integrity and hardworking ethic that I think really drove me to that next phase of life, which brings to the next stage, which I think really equipped me in a positive sense, was my time at the Naval Academy, and subsequently my time in the Navy, and all of the technical skills, technical knowledge you can say, but even in the more practical skills of working with people and being a leader and helping manage programs and things of that nature.
Well, that turning point in your life where you made a decision, whether it was in high school or whether it was in college, maybe it was when you were active in the Navy, to direct your life up ahead and to say, I'm going around that corner, I'm going to change. Tell us about that.
So I was actually talking with my wife last night about this, and well, there are a number of major turning points in my life, but the first one that came to mind, which I think was the biggest turning point, kind of a silly instance, but back when I was younger, I was really into football.
Yeah.
So, kind of the Optimus Pee Wee middle school league. And so much so, because as you know, my grandfather, my mom's father, he was, he was the lead scout for the Denver Broncos NFL team back in the days of John Elway and Super Bowls. Mm-hmm. So that left a big impression on me, and so I was really, really into football. Well, in that transition period from middle school to high school, one, everyone else kept growing, and I kind of stayed put where I was at, and I just kind of lost heart in it.
Oh.
But my mom, being a good mom, was like, you still got to do a sport. Like, you're not going to not do something. And so it's like, okay, what am I going to do? And for some reason, I decided to pick up running and I started cross country the following season as a freshman at Eagle High School. And that was really a key pivotal point, because not only did it turn out in my high school and college years that I was actually a pretty decent runner, that I had no idea, and that allowed me to get accepted to the Naval Academy as well.
Because of the need for candidates to go to the academy who had an athletic background as well as an academic background.
Well, yeah, as you know, so the service academies are very particular compared to, like a Harvard or some of those big Ivy League schools where they focus more on academics and maybe leadership stuff. The service academies focus on more well-rounded individuals. And so not only, was I decent enough in school and academics, but I had that running piece, and that piece really caught the attention of the head cross-country coach, Al Cantello, legend coach, cross-country coach for Navy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so leading up to that key pivotal turning point was I received basically a recruitment letter from Al Cantello encouraging me to apply to the Naval Academy, and that
must have been a great day.
That was pretty much it. So
that must have been a great day.
Yeah.
What a fascinating thing. Now, when you think about it, that letter in the mail surprised you. Boom, they're recruiting me. But what else surprised you based on the other turning points that you and your wife talked about, that might move us into the area of advice for people who are watching or listening to this podcast about crossroads?
Yeah, so this was also kind of interesting to talk with my wife about, because she's probably going to hate me because I'm actually going to say this. It might be a little bit harder to give some advice, but for the things that most surprised me in my life personally, in those key moments or turning points in my life, they were kind of a surprise.
Yeah.
Really, they were just unexpected moments where the opportunities that arose wasn't anything I was particularly planning on or preparing for, or even, as to use military terms, wasn't on my radar. Right. And so those moments really caught me by surprise. It's kind of a stupid thing. That's why she's going to hate me for saying it.
That's all right. And listen, you've only been married how long?
Not even quite a year.
There we are. She won't hate you. She'll simply direct you and then redirect. I've been married 47 years. Let me just share with you. Susan always tells me, what you should say was this. And then what I say to her is, if you'd like to come on the podcast, I'd love to have you. And she looks at me and goes, it's okay.
It's okay.
So you're doing fine.
But to finish on that point, what really sticks out with those unexpected moments is just the amount of joy that resulted from those that I couldn't have planned myself, and I'm a kind of planning person.
Yeah, you are. I've known you since the days of your youth, where you always had a plan, and it was as if there's an expression I use as a business coach, that your goals should be in concrete and your plans should be in sand. But my observation, I should say, and my observation of you as a young man was that your goals were in concrete and your plans were in concrete, and you moved ahead. But when those surprises came to you, what I'm hearing you tell me is that you learned to take those surprises in and say, well, okay, let's look at it. So the question that I have to you is, for the subscriber to our podcast, the folks who are listening in or watching in, what advice do you have for them about surprises T-boning them in their own life that are coming from just around the corner that they can't see? They don't know it's coming.
Yeah. So really, I think the best advice I would give, and maybe just for the type of person like me, as you mentioned, I'm the type of person that really needs to have goals in concrete and plans in concrete. And I think as general wisdom, that is a good thing to have, right? There's good wisdom in putting in the work and the hard effort and the thinking towards that. But at the same time, just be open and aware of those opportunities that if they do come across your table, you're paying attention enough to seize that opportunity and not getting bogged down so much with the working on your plans, as it were. So just being open for this opportunity.
I want to go back just a second to talk about your grandfather. From everything that I know of you is that your grandfather had a huge impact on you. And tell us a little bit about his life and how his time in the huge sports world of being a scout for the Denver Broncos reflected on you regarding the type of man he was and the character that he had, and how that gave you a direction in your life.
Yeah, it's super interesting question, and I'd say the things that really stuck out and left an impression on me from my grandfather was, first and foremost, he was a family man. So 3 daughters.
Give your grandfather's name.
Hugh Davidson.
Hugh Davidson
was his name. So if you can Google him up, afterwards. But first and foremost, he was a family man. Good husband, a good father to his three daughters. My mom being the middle child. And
does that mean that was a good thing?
I'm going to say yes, that was
okay,
a good thing. And so everything he did was to support, first and foremost, to support his family in leading them and guiding them in direction that he wanted to. But in conjunction with that, he really honored and valued his relationships with the players in his work life, right? So being a scout and really kind of a coach at the same time too, in trying to find the right quality people to be on the team. So he was more focused on the integrity of the players rather than just the raw talent and raw, abilities. A lot of those things were important in that level of professional sport. He cared more about the integrity and sportsmanship of the players in building that successful and cohesive teams. And I think those were the things that really left an impression on me.
Who were some of the ones that he did scout out from your memory?
Well, my memory is probably not perfect, and I may get fact checked later. That's okay, but I'm pretty sure he scouted John Elway for the team. So I'll have to double check that later.
Yeah. Well, when you think about it, he was all over the United States dealing with college players. When you determined that you were going to go to the United States Naval Academy, what advice did he give you about that school?
It's a little hard to remember exactly the advice he gave me prior and leading up to that moment.
But he was encouraging to you.
He was encouraging, and at least I think shared some of his experience of being in the Navy himself back during World War II. And I think I don't remember the exact conversations, but I just remember the love and encouragement that he offered to me. But even the more important things that were I think, unsaid, which I think left a bigger impression to me, was just him willing to give his time to come and be a part of that experience and visit me and attend my graduation, even in his old age when I did graduate. I think that was actually his last travel, if I recall.
Really?
So I think that spoke more words than anything.
I really get that. As a grandfather, I have 5 grandkids. They're, of course, younger, and I am not aged. Let me repeat that. I am not. And I do take great joy at every accomplishment that each one of them has. I try to make it to all of their birthdays. I'm there for different things because I don't know what's caught and then what's taught. From the example of your grandfather, you didn't care. He was there, and that vibe, that understanding that your grandfather loved you and cared for you is quite remarkable. So let's talk about 3 habits. What are the 3 habits or skills that have helped you as a man?
So these are probably the easiest ones to actually think of, and maybe they're overused a lot, but I truly feel like these are some of the best things that have really helped me in my personal life and professional life too. Well, first and foremost, as you know, I'm just kind of an avid exerciser, I guess. Yeah. So having my background in football in the younger years, then to running ungodly amounts in high school and eventually college, and a little bit after college too, being physically active has been a really important aspect of my life. And I think everything that I did in my younger years has really set me up in a better position where I am today, just on a health standpoint. So it just makes life a little bit easier in that regards. So I think exercise is a really good, continuous exercise for that matter too, is really important. In conjunction with that though, is adequate sleep. So, my wife can probably tell you I can be kind of a stickler when it's time to go to bed. Like, I really want to go to bed.
The clock is ready.
The clock is ready. I got to get my 7 to 9 hours of sleep. But I'm sure there's tons of studies out there that actually show how important sleep is. And I can even say that from my experience being in the Navy and working on a billion-dollar nuclear-powered submarine. That type of work environment doesn't really allow you to get a ton of sleep, and I really felt the effects of that lack of sleep during that time. So as often as you can, sleep is very, very important. Those would say were more habits, right? But in terms of the skill that I think has helped me the most, both in personal and professional life, I could say a more color way to say it, but I won't say it here. But basically just...
Wait, a Navy guy with a colorful language? I don't know, on a submarine.
Shocker, right? But really just the ability to just figure things out on your own.
Yeah.
I could use other terms to substitute.
Yeah.
But a little story on that, because I thought this was kind of cool, and I hated it in college. So at the Naval Academy, as a freshman, if you're familiar, they refer to you as a plebe. So, you're kind of the lowest of the low in that respects, and you have to work your way up. And during the summer boot camp experience, as it were, one of the things that the cadre or the seniors who facilitate that, one of the things they try to hammer into your head is this one story that we were all forced to read. It's this tiny little book, maybe like 50 pages, if that. And the title of the book is called Message to Garcia. And it's been a while. I think I only read it once because that was all that was required. But the premise of the book, the story is General Admiral Garcia, or whatever, way back in the hundreds of years ago, exploring the Americas from Spain. And the royalty at the time needed, the queen or whoever, the king, needed to send him a message about something, right? Knowledge is terrible on that, but read the book. So they send this messenger to go and deliver this message to Garcia for this is important news, but they didn't really know where he was at the time. And, at that time, you can't just hop on a flight, and next day land across the Mediterranean.
I was going to say, what a logistics nightmare.
Yeah, so it takes a couple months by sail to cross the Atlantic and get to the New World. And it took this messenger like over 3 years to deliver this message to Garcia, which at the time I was like, man, what an idiot. It took him 3 years to get this message. But the point of the story was he figured a way out to get the job done without any little guidance whatsoever. And so really the message of that story is, at some point in time and through very many moments in life, and especially as a leader where you're trying to manage a team with limited resources, information, and you won't have people always telling you what to do. At some point, you're going to have to take the reins and just figure things out. Yeah. And so that, I think, has been the biggest skill that I've learned and developed in my professional adult years that's really helped serve me.
And from that skill of solving it, problem solving, figuring it out, what takeaways have you seen with some examples in your business life? Figuring it out. What things have you been plopped into that you had no idea about that you had to go, all right, let's figure this thing out?
Well, just in my own personal, professional business right now and helping people with their finances, part of our coaching and process is, just learning more about the person, learning about the client and where they're at, what their goals are, and helping them develop a tailored, customized financial plan. And based on that conversation and what their goals are, it's kind of on me and to some extent a team that I have at my disposal to help put together a plan that best connects them to the tools and the resources available to us to best meet their need. But there's no generic formula where you just spit in the information that's going to give you the right answer out. There's a little bit of art and sometimes problems come up that are unexpected, whether it's a technical problem that needs to get fixed or someone drops the ball in any given part of that process. So that's definitely helped me in that regards on the professional level.
So as we come in for a landing or, as you would say, emerge to dock at the pier, what would you say is the biggest disappointment you've had in your life, and how have you overcome that through the problem-solving skill that's been developed?
Well, biggest disappointment. I'd have to say the biggest moment of disappointment in my adult years so far was actually during my time in the Navy. So in my first tour of duty as a junior division officer on a submarine, and literally fresh on the boat back in 2014 timeframe, the work environment at that time, and particularly some of those in leadership positions, it wasn't the best situation. And some of the individuals and leaders were just not good leaders at all, and were incredibly difficult to work with and incredibly demeaning and not professional at often times. And so that created a very intense environment that I was not really quite expecting, especially given my time at the Naval Academy and all the training and working with great and wonderful people and leaders who...
With lofty ideals and a plan that several hundred years old on how to produce an officer.
Yeah, and really good wisdom and experience passed on from their personal experiences to, in effect, whether they intended it or not, kind of jazz you up for a great career in the Navy, in my case, working on a submarine. And moving forward but it really kind of left a bad taste in my mouth, and I wasn't achieving other important life goals at the time too, and so that really deterred or maybe derailed any ideas of continuing on with a full career in the Navy. So really the issue was just around relationships
Sure.
at that time.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of using that practical skill of, okay, well, how did that help me manage that situation? Well, first of all, even disappointments or failures are still learning moments.
Absolutely.
Right? So if anything, hey, that's a learning moment of what I do not want to do.
I do not want to be.
I do not want to be
right.
that type of person. In my life and those who, I lead and manage, being in the Navy
Right.
or even afterwards. So that's that learning moment too. But using the skill of figuring things out, well, now it's shifted into a mindset of, well, this isn't going to be my ultimate career path and where God needs me to be. It's like, well, now I got to figure out what I'm going to do afterwards.
Sure.
And so using that to do the preparation and training to lead me here today was how that transition happened.
That's wonderful. Well, I applaud your being a man of faith. I applaud the reality of what you've done in your business, what you've done for service for our nation. I'd like to keep you on for another episode if I could, and I'd like to do a deeper dive on the service academies.
Oh, excellent.
For our viewers and our listeners, one of the key things that Just Around the Corner continues to encourage is that there are new experiences that might be available for you and your family that right now you know nothing about. In the case with Cody and me today, certainly it's been his life. It's the key things that have touched him. Now we're going to, on the next episode, and please join us for that, we're going to talk about the service academies, the two that we're familiar with, Cody with United States Naval Academy and me with the United States Military Academy at West Point, and what that might be for your family, for your sons, your daughters, your grandkids, who might be interested in at one time attending. You'll get an insider scoop from the last 15 years that Cody was in, and then inside scoop from a lot longer than that with me, with West Point. But please stay with us, and I hope you enjoy that episode as much as I hope you've enjoyed this one.